Hello fair raiders and welcome to my humble abode. Last time I discussed the 10 best DLCs in the latest Tomb Raider trilogy and that was a bliss. But today I'd like to present you with a very special kind of video. Today I'm going to give you my own retrospective on one of the best Tomb Raider games ever made, and it's called Tomb Raider. You think they left now? Go to hell. Tomb Raider 1 is the first installment in the Tomb Raider series and it set the standards for the whole franchise. It was made by a small team of very talented people at core design, and reading from their interviews you can tell that they were really focused on creating a gaming experience that few other Tomb Raider titles managed to reproduce. We'll see that in a moment. And I'd like to pay tribute to Mr. Neil Boyd, who passed away this year. He was one of the key level designers in this game, and he was responsible for designing levels like the Lost Valley, Colosseum, Palace Midas, Atlantis, and the Great Pyramid. Before we start, I have a couple things to say. First of all, I will cover the PC version of the game, which means that I will also review the bonus levels known as Unfinished Business. In addition, this video is an upgraded version of the Tomb Raider 1 retrospective I made for another video, in which I ranked all Tomb Raider games. Have a look if you haven't already. So let's see right now the feedback from the community. I'm really excited to... Oh, I see. Well, you know what? I don't care. I'm stupid. I could just take footage from other people without their permission and mix that in a big video I would call The Evolution of Tomb Raider Games and have thousands of views with little if not zero effort and standard quality footage. But no, I told you, I'm stupid. I spent a year writing a script, I replayed all the games, and this was the result. Anyway, these people just prove my points. So let's go. Tomb Raider 1 is the first Tomb Raider game I have ever played, but I didn't complete it before the retail version of the Unfinished Business expansion was released, and that was exactly 1 month after Tomb Raider 3. Why it took me so long to really beat this game, I wouldn't know, but it was the one that got me into Lara Croft. This was a DOS game after all. You don't know what DOS is?
Get lost.
Now, I could argue that Tomb Raider is the best Tomb Raider game because it was the first, but this is not a gerontocracy. And yet Tomb Raider remains essential in the sense that most of the mechanics and themes it instituted are still staples today. The first and most qualitative aspect in this title is its excellent level design. It's very coherent from start to finish. Considering 3D action adventure games weren't very common before that, it was great to be able to evolve in environments that felt credible and mysterious, with historical references everywhere. The city of Vilcabamba is a legendary city and a symbol of Incan resistance against the invasion of the Spaniards. The majestic obelisk of Camoon, the sprawling Colosseum, the abstruse layout of the cistern, the mythical city of Atlantis, the Sphinx and the pyramid in the expansion, and many other things. Special attention was paid to making all these levels unique in their own rights, and what I like with Tomb Raider 1996 is that, with a few exceptions, the levels were designed to look realistic and immersive. The developers clearly emphasized the coherence of the world they were building, and this is why many players found some levels quite confusing. But the thing is, they had little, and they did a lot. What is even more remarkable is that knowing this, you could expect the gameplay to be somewhat redundant, but it doesn't feel like that. Back then Lara couldn't do much. Climbing a ladder, for example, was impossible. But the little things she could do were key to your progression. St. Francis Folly and Atlantis have very vertical designs and many little puzzles for you to solve, and yet they are very different. Atlantis is more linear and includes more combat sequences. The Cistern and the Tomb of Teotihuacan have underwater stages, and yet they are very different. Palace Midas epitomizes the gameplay variety in Tomb Raider: climbing, shooting, backtracking, interacting with the environment, solving puzzles, exploring, swimming, jumping. This wasn't much compared to now, and yet the way the game was structured is very dynamic in the noble sense of the term, and not artificially dynamic like some other games were. It's rather like little gameplay areas with specific things to do. Tomb Raider 1 is a textbook case. The game structure is noteworthy indeed. The pacing between action and reflection, the story, the tension, the feeling of immersion and isolation. Tomb Raider 1 has an excellent difficulty curve, moving from very linear stages to more sprawling and alinear levels, with increasingly powerful enemies and with many and various puzzles. More or less. Levels starting in medias res are then immediately balanced by 1 or 2 puzzles that require a bit of reflection. It might be true that the game mechanics might be repetitive. You are often asked to do the same thing, like finding keys or some special object to move forward. But because there is a sense of progression, and because the game environment changes and evolves, you don't really see that. Again, the Cistern and the Tomb of Teotihuacan have many textures in common, but the way the setting is used is not the same as it mirrors the dramatic progression of the game. Tomb Raider 1 is in fact more than just a textbook case. It's a classic, but a classic that could be improved upon. Tomb Raider was first and foremost an experiment, and a successful one, but an experiment that I believe was simply overshadowed by most of its successors.
I'm Neptune, god of the sea. I sink ships and conjure up storms.
No.
Fatality.
The god of thunder!
Be quiet!
The city of Vilcabamba and the Lost Valley have potentially more dreadful underwater sections. And animals don't have teeth like that.
Hello there.
Good day, sir!
Each time there's a new Tomb Raider coming out, the franchise is being redefined. It improves on what was done before, letting go of certain stuff and bringing in new gameplay features. There was no standard Tomb Raider could be compared with, so the developers created their own standards with no idea whether players around the world would fall in line. And given the technical limitations back in the day, this game was, by definition, incomplete. Don't you think that the game developers would have liked to include most of the things Tomb Raider has now? Lara talking to you all the time was technically not possible back then. And what we had instead was
No.
just like they didn't have the time to work on the sky, at least until the expansion. This is why all the levels have such an enclosed environment, Lara's home included, and why the camera forces you to look in one direction sometimes. It's not that the game is not properly telegraphed, but rather that the technical limitations of the engine made it difficult to propose an even more advanced form of telegraphy. When you get stuck because you didn't know about something really stupid like moving a block or standing on a tile to open a door, don't you think that they were aware the player would likely be confused? Exploration in Tomb Raider is mostly about orientation, finding your way in other words. In this respect, levels like the Colosseum and Nathal's Mines, although I think they look astounding, could have benefited from better telegraphy. All these problems were already topics of discussion back then. The unfinished business expansion is a good illustration of how perfectible the main game was. It keeps the verticality and alinearity found in levels like the Sanctuary of the Skian, but with even more tension.
You do know what that means, don't you?
Be careful. Tension and action are two separate things. Action is when you have bunches of enemies coming at you and you just keep shooting all the time, as in some other installments. Wink wink. But on the other hand, tension is more about the atmosphere, the ambience, and how it impacts on your progression. The best illustration for this can be found in the unfinished business expansion. It's not about shooting everything, it's about progressing, not knowing what you could expect. What they notably improved was the pacing. Take Return to Egypt, the first level. It wasn't supposed to be the first. Lara should have started precisely where the main game stopped, but the order of the levels was changed at the last moment for telegraphing purposes. Return to Egypt is the most linear of the 4 additional levels, and the puzzles are more about exploration for the sake of exploration, rather than exploration looking for a key as the Temple of the Cat does.
Hello there.
And they didn't forget about the jump scares, so the levels are even more sprawling. Seriously, I think it looks like an older version of Underworld. The designers were starting to think about more complex and non-linear levels that intertwined, or rather gave the impression they did. The Stronghold and the Hive are not as linear as the Great Pyramid or Atlantis, but they keep the same setting and improve on what was in the main game to make you stay a bit longer in this atypical place. You find yourself in a huge crumbling pyramid with deadly traps, original puzzles, dangerous platforms, multiple enemies and little moments that will scare the shit out of you. The same formula applies to the Temple of the Cat. Think of it as one of the hardest tombs in this game. Tomb Raider is, in comparison, a very healthy walk. I consider Unfinished Business the best of everything that made Tomb Raider so good, and it's a good reminder that the original game was still perfectible. It's a shame that they weren't part of the Anniversary remake because they added new layers to the main game and brought it closer to the spirit of the games that would follow. Many people consider Tomb Raider the best game in the series, and in my opinion, the people at Core Design were still learning the craft. And I give them that, it's understandable. Tomb Raider goals set the limits of what a Tomb Raider game could be, but I prefer when you can go beyond those limits. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to help me get to 1000 subs, be my guest. This is a bilingual channel, but don't freak out. I put out Tomb Raider content in English every month. And with 1000 subs, I would be able to stream and monetize my work. So if you are interested in Tomb Raider, you should definitely stick around. This is free. And so is the Unfinished Business expansion, by the way. Have a look at this video if you are interested. And remember, have fun.